Welcome back to another Forge College Explainer. So, our topic today is linking decentralized identity to ERC-721 tokens. In our last session, scoping and planning the benchmark, we did a lot of theory. Well, today, we're actually drafting the engineering blueprints to link that identity directly to our smart contracts. Taking those massive ideas and wiring them into actual working code, hopefully without blowing up our local networks in the process. Okay, here is the master schematic for building our exclusive Web3 club. We're going to cover the blueprint for identity, building the identity registry, wiring identity to tokens, running the test drills, and finally, next steps for security. Let's get to it. Section 1. The blueprint for identity, designing the club's bouncer. Think about it. Right now, a standard ERC-721 contract is basically a nightclub with no front doors. Literally anyone with a crypto wallet can just stroll right in, grab a drink, mint a token. We really need a bouncer. So our core building block here is the decentralized identifier, or DID. When you combine a DID with a verifiable credential, you get our minimal unit of identity. It's kind of like a cryptographically secure VIP card that proves to the smart contract exactly who is trying to get in. But before we actually write the logic, we have to lay down the ink on this project. So grab your terminal and run these setup commands to initialize your Hardhat testing environment and pull in OpenZeppelin. We're just making the directory, installing ethers and chai for our tests, and spinning up an empty Hardhat config. I know, it's pretty standard procedure, but getting these dependencies exactly right is absolutely crucial before we start hammering away at the code. All right, Section 2, building the identity registry, drafting the guest list. So, we need a definitive, on-chain source of truth, something that dictates exactly who gets in and who gets turned away. Enter the identity registry contract. You can think of this as the club's master spreadsheet. It maps a DID fingerprint, which, by the way, we store highly efficiently as a bytes32 hash, straight to a specific wallet address. And look, if your address isn't in this registry, you simply don't exist to the bouncer. No access. Let's check out the actual functions powering this thing. First up is controller of, which handles our main mapping storage. Then we've got link DID and revoke DID. Now, notice the strict access control going on here. We are deliberately keeping this mechanism tight and auditable by restricting that registration power strictly to an attester role. They're acting as our credential issuer. Basically, only the head of security gets to add or remove people from the guest list. Finally, is controller of is just a quick, handy little Boolean helper check. Other contracts can use it so they don't have to constantly bother the boss for verification. Moving to Section 3, wiring identity to tokens, bolting the bouncer to the door. A bouncer is completely useless if they're just hanging out in the alleyway. They need to be physically at the door. And that's exactly how our architecture works. We strictly separate these concerns. The identity registry contract manages the guest list using that attester model we just talked about. Meanwhile, our ERC-721 token contract extends the standard logic so that it actually has to consult that exact registry before allowing any action. So the registry holds the clipboard, but the token contract, it enforces the rules. Let's look at the minting function to see this actually in action. We have mint2, which takes in that DID fingerprint. By actively pulling the controller address right from the registry during the mint, we ensure that absolutely no one gets a token unless their DID is officially linked. If the registry returns a 0 address, bam, the contract instantly reverts with DID not linked. No sneaky backdoor entries allowed here. But wait, what happens after the token is minted? Could someone just turn around and sell their VIP pass to an unverified wallet? Absolutely not. Not in our club. We actually override the before token transfer hook. We use this as an interceptor to demand that the recipient also has a registered DID. This means nobody can bypass our security just by transferring the token on the secondary market. The rules apply to everyone forever. That brings us to Section 4, running the test drills, putting the system under stress. Look, writing the code is only half the battle. Proving it actually works, that's where the real engineering happens. So let's meet our cast of characters for a local Hardhat test drill. We've got the deployer acting as admin and the attester as our bouncer. Alice is our VIP. She's got a linked DID. While Bob is going to try and sneak in without any credentials whatsoever. Let's see how the contract handles Bob. Okay, here are the check marks we want to hit. First, Alice mints successfully. Because her DID is linked,
Perfect, working as intended. Second, Bob attempts to mint and boom, the transaction reverts with DID not linked. As expected, Alice walks right in. But when Bob tries to mint or even receive a transfer from Alice, the contract firmly rejects him. It's literally only when the attester officially stamps his DID and links him up that the transfer finally goes through. Our logic holds up perfectly under stress, guys.
Now, it wouldn't be a proper coding explainer without a little troubleshooting, right? If your tests are failing, the first thing you should do is check that your registry address is being correctly passed into the token's constructor. Also, watch out for ABI mismatches. And definitely ensure your test accounts actually have those specific attester permissions set up. I mean, a simple typo regarding who the attester is can accidentally lock literally everyone out of the club. We definitely don't want that.
In our final section, number 5, next steps for security, preparing for the worst.
So, we've successfully built the foundation, but engineering a secure Web3 system means you always have to think like an attacker. To keep things robust, we follow 3 core engineering principles. 1. Separate your attestation logic from your token policy. 2. Prefer simple attestation models during development. And 3. Always design for testability with deterministic helpers. By keeping our registry simple and our tests completely deterministic, we've created a really clean, testable pattern that treats identity linkage as a pure authorization primitive. Basically, keep the complex, heavy stuff out until your foundation is rock solid.
But I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought before we explore threat modeling in our next lesson. What actually happens to our entire Web3 club if the attester's private keys are stolen? Just think about our architecture for a second. If a malicious actor compromises the bouncer, they could link absolutely any DID they want. They could flood our highly exclusive club with unverified wallets. It's kind of terrifying, right? It's a massive single point of failure that every developer really needs to consider.
So how do we defend against that catastrophic scenario? Well, to find out and to explore a ton of other deep Web3 topics, you've got to visit forge.college. Go check out the community there, dive into the advanced learning programs, and just keep expanding your smart contract skills. Thanks so much for joining me on this Forge College Explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.